Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 12. I am Francis Edit, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakoran. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Buhari seeks fresh aid. Government says lack of funds holds Eastern Railway project. Plus, UN Security Council adopts first ever Myanmar resolution. We'll bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Debt rose to 22.57 trillion naira as the federal government has proposed a last-minute supplementary budget for 2022 fiscal year. President Muhammadu Buhari is seeking which it planned to finance through domestic borrowing. The supplementary budget, as explained by the President in a letter read in plenary by the President of the Senate, N819, is meant for the capital expenditure component of the 2022 budget, with an attendant increase of deficit to 8.17 trillion naira. However, with a newly proposed domestic debt, the federal government's domestic borrowing is expected to hit 3.33 trillion naira in 2022.
And 59 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, I formally request for consideration and passage into law by the Senate the Finance Bill 2022. The Finance Bill 2022 seeks to support the implementation of the 2023 federal budget of fiscal consolidation and transfer 8 and 59 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended 2022.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has written to the Senate requesting the approval of restructuring of 23.7 trillion naira ways and means advances given to the federal government by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. The President, in a letter read by Senate President Ahmed Lawan during plenary, explained that ways and means are advances from the CBN to the federal government for emergency funding of delayed perceived fiscal deficit. He said the ways and means balance as of 19th December 2020 is legislative action. He said the request and the 819.5 billion naira supplementary budget will be considered and passed by the Senate today alongside the 20.51 trillion naira 2023 appropriation bill. In another, Muhammadu Buhari leaves office in May 2023. The Minister of Transportation, Muazzu Sambo, told State House correspondents at the end of this week's Federal Executive Council meeting at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, that the project has been stalled by the unavailability of the foreign loans required to fund it. Recall that in April 2022, construction of the 2000 and at the time Rotimi Amechi, who inspected the commencement of work, said the project would stimulate economic activities in the 14 states, including 5 southeastern states. In the meantime, the Federal Executive Council has approved a total of 386 in transportation. The various ministers revealed the respective memorandum approved by the Council and the corresponding amounts earmarked for the project. Shortly after this week's Federal Executive Council meeting, the Council approved a memorandum for the provision of alternative power supply to line to Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, which he said had been disconnected from the national grid for 24 months due to insurgency. Personnel is colliding with criminal elements to sabotage the efforts of the Nigerian Navy at curbing illegal bunkering and crude oil theft in the country. He made the disclosure at the decoration of the newly promoted Rear Admirals in Abuja, where he warned that any personal court tasked the Navy with the elimination of crude oil theft in the country. In the midst of the celebration, the CNS urged them to remain loyal to the president and the country as a whole. He further warned that any personal court sabotaging measures put him to the rank of Rear Admiral.
There are pockets of personnel still colluding with criminals to sabotage these efforts. Let me therefore warn that illegalities will be met with stiff sanctions in accordance with the laws of the land.
The blue economy certainly will be exploited further. And I believe that as we continue along the path of fleet, the Navy will be getting more tools to be able to ensure that whatever malfeasance that have occurred within the maritime domain ceases to it.
On electoral matters, President Muhammadu Buhari has affirmed readiness to campaign elections. Presidential spokesman Garba Shehu in a statement said the president is ready for the 2023 campaigns with full energy and conviction. According to the statement, the president's move is to dispel expressed concerns in certain quarters that the president has not featured in campaigns since the national lunch in Jos Plateau State, and to stress that while he remains committed to party politics. In the meantime, the European Union, EU, in response to the invitation by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), has decided to deploy an EU Election Observation Mission (EOM), which consists of 11 election experts who will arrive in Abuja during the first half of January, and 40 long-term observers who will join the mission to observe the general elections scheduled for 25th February and 11 March 2023. A statement by the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Vice President of the European Commission, Joseph Borrell, said. Meanwhile, High Representative and Vice President Joseph Borrell in a statement said the elections will be crucial for the consolidation of democracy in Nigeria and for the stability of the region. Reports say this is the 6th time that the EU deploys an election observation mission to Nigeria, reflecting its commitment to work together to consolidate democracy in the country, stressing that the EU EOM will provide a comprehensive, independent and impartial assessment of the electoral process based on international and regional standards for democratic elections. Under Secretary General for Peacekeeping Operations Jean-Pierre Laroque says there has been a relative but not insignificant improvement in the security climate of the Central African Republic, CAR. Laroque said this during an official visit to Bangui, the capital of the CAR. The UN Under Secretary General for Peacekeeping Operations also stressed that there is more whirling civil war since 2013 and is at the heart of Russia's bid for strategic influence in Africa. Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council voted unanimously to extend the UN peacekeeping mission in Congo, known as MONUSCO. The force was the target of deadly summertime protests by Congolese who said armed groups were still demonstrators, sometimes with force. Reports say the resolution extending the UN peacekeeping force until December 20, 2023 strongly condemns all domestic and foreign armed groups operating in the country and demands they immediately cease all violence and destabilizing actions and the illegal exploitation and trafficking of natural resources. On the foreign scene, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has told American lawmakers in Washington that the United States assistance for Ukraine is not charity, but rather an investment in security. Zelensky, who gave a Ukrainian battle flag to the United States lawmakers following an address to a joint session of Congress since Russia invaded in February. The Ukrainian president also vowed his country would never surrender to Russia. Still on the foreign scene, the United Nations Security Council has called for Myanmar's junta to release Aung San Suu Kyi as it adopted its first ever resolution on the situation in the tumult-ridden Southeast Asian country. Reports say the adoption marks a moment of relative council unity in a year in which divisions have been heightened by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, freedoms and the rule of law. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the resolution sends a strong message from the world that the junta must end its violence across the country and free prisoners. Recall that Suu Kyi, now 77 years old, has been a prisoner since the army toppled her government almost 2 years ago and violently cracked down on dissent. Ashford scores as Man United beat Burnley 2-1 in EFL Cup. To stay with us.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigeria. From issues on politics,
hello Nigeria, I remain committed.
Security, education, health,
lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken
every weekday from 7.
Season's greetings from Spectrum TV.
Staying with us, we move on to business, where terminal operators operating in the nation's maritime sector under the urges of Seaport Terminal Operators of Nigeria, STVNg, have said the 2006 port concession has saved Nigeria $16 billion in 16 years. The chairman of the STVNg, Vicky Hartstrop, who said this in Lagos, stressed that the exercise has been a huge success and brought tremendous improvements to the country's port system. She listed all the benefits, including the injection of private capital into port development, ports, improved availability of cargo handling equipment, competition among terminal operators, improved welfare and training of port workers, and the institution of a condition of service for dock workers. Recall that the federal government had embarked on a port reform in 2006, which led to the concession of cargo handling operations at the port to private terminal operators. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency have attributed the high cost of foodstuff in the country to the war risk insurance premium on Nigerian-bound vessels and cargoes. Director General Nimesa Bashir Jamo, who said this in Port Harcourt, cargoes, noting that the imposition of the war risk insurance on all Nigerian-bound cargoes was a deadly blow to the economy, as it negatively impact on the cost of goods is felt by every Nigerian. Jabo said Nigeria has done so much to stamp out piracy on its territorial waters and the Gulf of Guinea, adding that the country deserved the international insurance company's consideration on the removal of the war risk insurance. In Hull, the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba, in Lagos State, says it has attended to 77,071 psychiatric patients at various outpatient pharmaceuticals. This closed this during the hospital's presentation of the 2022 annual report. They said the hospital catered for some indignant patients and admission, as a total of 24 indignant patients were catered for, and medications worth 1.35 million were dispensed to them. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Medical Association NMA Ogun chapter has warned against attacking its medical personnel. The NMA chairman, Dr. Kunle Ashimi, who gave the warning during a news conference in Abeokuta, urged patients and their relations to channel their complaints to appropriate quarters. He said that the patients or relatives should express their grievances to appropriate quarters and avoid attacking doctors. UFC champions Israel Adesanya and Kamaru Usman remain in the top 3 of the latest UFC round-for-round ranking, despite both losing their belts in 2022. The rankings were reportedly updated after the final pay-per-view of the year at UFC 282 in Las Vegas. Reports say Adesanya takes the number 3 spot in the latest rankings after he had previously dropped to number 5. This is the first time since unifying the belt in 2019. Adesanya is no longer sitting atop the middleweight division. And as he scored a fine solo goal in Manchester United's EFL Cup win over Burnley at Old Trafford. Recall that Rashford was one of 5 United players on duty in Qatar to make manager Erik ten Hag's starting lineup. Meanwhile, with Ronaldo now consigned to Old Trafford history, Anthony Martial has the chance to show he can be the effective number 9 Ten Hag believes he is capable of. On our entertainment news, Africa's largest running and most successful drama series, Tinsel, has hit a new milestone. The show is hitting the 3,500 episode. African Magic is releasing a documentary titled Through the Decades, a Tinsel Story, which follows all the changes, faces, improvement, and even losses the show has experienced over the 14 years of being aired on television. Which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You've been watching Spectrum News at 12. I am Francis Edit. Many thanks for watching. Good afternoon.